So about 15 years ago, my parents were visiting me in the city, and for whatever reason, we happened to keep walking past the same intersection at multiple points over the course of their visit. Every time we did so, we could hear a guy appealing to the passers-by to check out the movie that he had made. His pitch was as follows: "Hey, check out my movie. I wrote it, I produced it, I directed it, I starred in it, I composed the soundtrack. I think I made up the last part." We heard this over and over again. I never did check out his movie, but when I consider all the movies that I have watched and completely forgotten, then consider that I remember this guy and the Pelagian monument that he erected, maybe that was the bigger accomplishment. After all, the whole pitch isn't what the movie has to offer. It's that this random guy did all these things. No further explanation required. Where do I sign? God is only three persons, but this guy did four different things. He took on four different roles, and he made a movie. A movie justified entirely by its own conception, willed into being by one man. In today's gospel, Jesus gives his 12 apostles just three things to do: heal people, cast out demons, and proclaim the good news. He does this lamenting that the operation is going to be short-staffed. Not only are the apostles named in this text, this represents the moment that they graduate from being disciples to being apostles, sent forth and tasked with doing what was previously Jesus' department exclusively. As modern Christians, we bear that same directive. We have been granted that same, or at least some aspects of that authority and that responsibility. The apostles were able to perform miracles because they were representatives of Christ, and Christ was able to accomplish what he accomplished through many hands over the course of many years to the present age. He continues to do so. A personal difficulty I have as a very results-oriented person is getting too caught up in what I've tangibly produced or failed to produce. That's not to say that I have any real inclination to take inventory of what I could claim credit to, but rather that I tend to beat myself up over having a lack of things to show for myself, or the perception of being judged on that basis. That's my issue, but I mention this because we are all, as a community, embarking on a period of time where we are going to be transitioning back to normal from the state of quarantine. I can definitely say the big piece of good news for me is that today is the first day in months that I've had a reason to be able to travel more than walking distance from my apartment in the city since, I think, early March. I got on the subway, I got on a train, I got on a bus, and then I got the rest of the way here by car. 4 vehicles. That's always how I've gotten here, but it's been such a long break from routine that the novelty has returned. That said, I think we are going to be experiencing a bittersweet sense of things going back to normal, but also not going back to normal, of the new normal not seeming in any way better or even comparable to the old. I can't help but think that the coronavirus and the current civil unrest are exacerbating each other on some level. We have too much to process right now. It's one thing to curate and control every aspect of a creative project. It's quite another to apply that to life. These are certainly times when we would do well to remember that. So while the message for the day is very much go out and do, it is presented in the context of the authority being given by and the responsibility belonging to Jesus, to God. And what that should be for us is freeing, far more so than it is the language of obligation. There are so many variables and complications added to the lives of so many people right now that it is more important than ever that we as individuals truly accept that much of what transpires is out of our hands. And even when it is within our hands, God trusts us to handle it as best we can. Over the course of the quarantine, I've appreciated the individual creativity that isolation has inspired in some people. In particular, I'm thinking of the use of overlapping musical recordings that have graced our worship services so frequently. Having one or a few become many through such means has been a charming necessity of the times. But it also serves as, I think, a poignant visual representation of how we should not be seeing ourselves. Rather, as we transition back out into the world, that we work toward being many, becoming one through the necessities of the times. We can do that by doing what Jesus told the apostles to do, not by trying to do a million things at the same time, but by asking ourselves how, in our proceedings, do we help each other heal and grow, and in so doing, proclaim the good news? That is what we need to be taking inventory of. Amen. And also, after the service, please check out my movie.